Hi, good afternoon. Sharda Ugra here. As part of the Hindustan Times Olympics conversations, with me today is the sports editor of Hindustan Times, Rudraneil Sengupta, and our absolutely very, very special guest, Abhinav Bindra, who's here. No introductions. So I'm just going to go straight into it. Abhinav, what are your thoughts about the fact that we are now a couple of weeks from the Olympics, no spectators? What's the general sort of buzz and feeling around? You work at the Athletes Commission. What's going on?
Well, I think we are all optimistic that it will be a safe and secure games. What is nice to see is a lot of conversations surrounding the games are now shifting to the athletes, because for far too long in the last few months, it's all been COVID, COVID, COVID. Of course, the concerns still remain, and they remain with everybody. But at least we're starting to hear about the athletes. But to be very honest, for me, the Olympic Games mean much more than just a sporting event and just a sporting competition where 300 odd gold medals will be given out during the course of 2 weeks. For me, the Olympic Games stand as a sign of unity. It stands as a sign of the world coming together. In 2 weeks' time, the Olympic Village, for example, will perhaps be the most unique place on the planet. 206 national Olympic committees, meaning 206 nations and one Olympic refugee team, will be staying together in friendship and respect and competing in intense competition. So I think the spirit that is so unique to an Olympic Games is needed than ever before, especially with what we've seen in the last couple of years around the world with the pandemic. I mean, there has been an excessive nationalism and an excessive egoism. And I think the Olympic Games is a real chance to show and get this Olympic spirit back and remind the world that it is still possible to unite. So for me, that is the most important thing. Of course, looking forward to really top-class sporting action, but of course, it's much more than just a sports event.
There has been no sort of Olympics like this in our living memory, as far as sort of we can remember. The war stopped the Olympics, and then now the pandemic has stopped it. I mean, is this an ideal time for the Olympics itself to refresh itself? Because there was all this sort of focus on it that it's become too big, it's too many people, too many countries, too much, that kind of thing. Is this almost an ideal kind of you can actually reboot and show people what the Olympics stands?
Well, I think we are going to live in a post-COVID world, and the whole world is going to change, and sport will also have to learn to adapt. And the Olympic movement is by no means there will be a great degree of reset even within the Olympic movement. We're already seeing that happen, and we're already. I think the IOC is already working on how a post-COVID Olympic movement would look like. So I expect many learnings from this, many changes, a lot of adaptability coming into place in the next Olympic cycle. So I think there will be a definite change. I mean, even if you look at the whole Paris 2024 model, it's so unique with the whole social enterprise and then the social business model of the whole Olympic project, which is very unique. It's never been done before, even from procurement contracts where they're making sure that it helps the smaller companies, the smaller corporations. So I think there is a reset button that is going to happen. The world has to reset, and for sure, sport too will have to reset.
And we'll also see like the Olympics heading towards more and more gender parity. In fact, this will be the most number of women athletes in an Olympics ever. Yeah. Paris 2024 will be exactly the equal number.
Yeah. I think the youth Olympic Games in Argentina saw the first competition, which was totally which had gender parity, and I think Tokyo is already very close, and I think Paris for sure will be there. I think, for example, the sport of shooting has already achieved gender equality, so there are equal number of men, equal number of women, same amount of events, which is wonderful to see. And I think the sports movement, the Olympic movement, is leading in this way, and showing the world the importance of gender equality and really showcasing that with concrete action on the ground. So I think that's wonderful to see.
Right. And it's very interesting what you said about the Olympic Village being this unique space where, like nations will unite, and even for athletes, and literally it'll be a chance to like finally exhale in a way, because they've gone through a whole year of uncertainty. There was a whole months without sports, locked up in their houses, didn't know where to go and what to do. Did you ever think of, if you were in a situation like this and you were gearing up for the 2020 Olympics in 2020 and it got postponed and you didn't know if it's going to happen, and then it got postponed by a year, how would you have handled that time period? What does it do to an athlete in terms of their preparations, in terms of the mental state as well?
I think it calls for a degree of flexibility and adaptability. And I think athletes are unique in that way, because athletes are flexible and adaptable because that's what sport demands of them. And this is just a scenario where they've had to bring that to the table. Uncertainty, we all live in uncertain times. I mean, in sport is all about uncertainty. But of course, this has been a very unique situation, especially the time, last year when athletes were completely locked in, could not even access any sports facilities. I think more than the physical element, it was the mental element, which was athletes had to go through the mental health element. But I think society in general had to go through that. So I think just being flexible and open-minded and be ready to adapt, that would have been my mantra if I was to go and compete in Tokyo. I mean, even now you're going to go into the Olympic Village 5 days prior to your event. I think that's the time allowed. So it's not much time. You have to learn how to adapt quickly. I mean, athletes coming in from areas where there is a jet lag involved, you have to prepare for that already in advance. I think you should start getting into a time zone a couple of days prior, maybe. And also the time in Tokyo is going to be restricted, and you have to plan your day so that you remain in a good frame of mind. But also things can change. Something happens. I mean, you don't know. So just if you remain flexible, go with the flow to a certain degree, because nobody really knows what's going to happen next. So if you go with that kind of attitude, you'll just be more open to change and you'll just be ready to adapt a little bit faster. And the athletes who would be able to adapt that little bit faster will probably be the ones who would come through and perform well.
Right.
Abhinav, the Indian shooting contingent is very, very young. There are a lot of that teenagers in there, where people in their early 20s. Is this something you think that's going to be easier for them because there's less baggage when you're a teenager? What do you think?
Yeah, a younger brain means a more plastic brain, so more flexible. So I think it's an advantage. I think a younger person is just able to adapt a little bit faster. And I'm just looking at it from a point of view of a fan. As an athlete, I was not very positive, but as a sports fan, I've suddenly become very positive, and I really hope, and I look at things from a very positive point of view. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. So I look at it from a very positive angle, and that, we have a young team, and they'll just be able to adapt to these changing circumstances much more efficiently, like in comparison to an old horse like me. But I think it would be an advantage. And also a lot of them are first-time Olympians. So, I think the uniqueness also of Olympic Games is, the overload and the sensory overload an Olympic Games brings. You enter an Olympic Village, you see all these things, you see all these athletes, that aura, that atmosphere that is existing in an Olympic arena and in an Olympic competition is a sensory overload. When it's a sensory overload, you're gonna cognitively decline, and that's going to affect your performances. But there is no sensory overload at the moment. There are no spectators. You're pretty much locked into your room, I guess, and go to compete. So it's much more closer to a normal tournament that you are used to competing in. So again, I think it should play up to our advantage. I'm being positive here.
there were a whole lot of athletes, including, say, Kirsten Warholm, who just set the 400-meter hurdles record, who in fact spoke about this and said that, we thought at the beginning that it would be really bad for us, but to get that extra year, to get it all to ourselves and not have a tournament, it actually meant that we worked on the smaller things, on our smaller weaknesses, and we've gotten better. And we see a lot of records in track and field, for example, that were broken just leading up to the Olympics. So
yeah, I think there will be no difference. I think there will be no differences in the quality of performances because
right.
I think athletes have gotten an extra year to train. But also, I think if you notice, a lot of sporting action has resumed over the period of the last 1 year. I think we've seen more than 250 championships at the world level happen in different sports and different Olympic sports, which involve more than 30,000 athletes competing. So there has been also competition. So I think they've got a good chance to train, but now of late they've also been able to compete. So I think we can look forward to world-class performances in different sports.
Just one last question, Abhinav, almost a cliche question. If you had a message to give out to the Indian contingent, shooters, non-shooters, everybody else, what would you say?
Well, I think they should not think of the outcome too much. I think we all know, and they themselves know what type of an outcome they're looking at. I think they should not waste their mental capacity reminding themselves of the desired outcome, but rather just put all their mental capacity and output into into the process, into the actual execution of their skill, and try and remain in the moment. Don't think too much in front of what the possibilities that await you, or do not carry the baggage of the past. Just live it in that moment. This is competing in an Olympic Games, even though it is a very special and a very different Olympic Games, is an opportunity of a lifetime. So just savor it and just live it up, live it to the moment. And if you do that, I think it gives you the best possible chance to perform to the best of your abilities. And frankly, that's all what you can do. I mean, the end outcome, you can't really script, because in sport, you can't really script an outcome. So, but I think this may give you the best possibility to get the best out of yourself.
How good is the Indian shooting contingent? In a cold-blooded assessment, if you were to make one, how good is that? And not just the shooting contingent, but in fact, I don't remember the last time that India went into an Olympic Games with so many of its athletes ranked in the top 3 in the world, which we have in wrestling, in boxing, in badminton. So, your assessment of that?
So, to be very honest and frank with you, my assessment is as good as a normal fan's assessment. And I rely on all of your reports and all of your writing and stories to inform me on how good these people are. Because frankly, I've not had the opportunity to see them compete because they belong to a generation after mine. I don't really go and watch sport so much anymore post my retirement from sport. I barely watch any. But on paper, it looks so good. I saw the start list to the Olympic competition just yesterday evening. Somebody sent it to me, and on paper, I mean, it looks so great. I mean, we have, 8 athletes starting on as world number 1 and world number 2 in just the sport of shooting. And I look at 30, 40, and these young athletes have won competitions which has many more competitors taking part. For example, a World Cup or a World Championship is far more competitors competing at the games, at that tournament. And Olympics is far more restricted. Of course, the level of competition is maybe higher, but it's only 30, 40 people who are competing. So it's also a smaller group. I think also there's mixed team event. I mean, you have 2 teams from India per event. So you have India A and India B. So a gold medal match may well be India A versus India B, which will be wonderful for India, but very boring for a sports fan to watch, because we know which nation is winning both the medals. But I do hope that happens, and I get to watch a boring competition, especially in this one.
That'll be goosebumps. If that happens.
Well, but the goosebumps will already happen before the competition. You already know, you're already happy.
Yeah,
that's not
true.
what sports fan is looking for. A sports fan is looking for victory to be decided on the last shot, as Sharda witnessed in one little competition 13 summers ago.
Exactly. To a point of complete, absolute, like sort of mental and physical collapse, personally, while having nothing to do with it other than sitting and watching. So, other than that. But thanks so much, Abhinav. That was a fantastic conversation. All the very best for all of us, I suppose. Thanks, Rudro, and on we go. In 2 weeks, Tokyo will be upon us. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you.